Everyone loved Nottingham Forest's story. A club once lost in the shadows, finally back where they belonged. The city ground was alive again. The fans, the chants, the belief, all reborn after decades in exile. They were supposed to be football's fairy tale comeback, proof that history never dies. But behind that fairy tale was a man rewriting the script in his own image. Evangelos Marinakis, the billionaire owner who promised ambition, power and glory. And for a moment, it worked. Forest rose from the ashes, spent big, dreamed bigger. But soon, the fairy tale cracked. Managers came and went, players played in fear, and the man who rebuilt Nottingham Forest slowly began to tear it apart. This is the story of how one owner's obsession turned love into chaos, how Marinakis' power lifted Nottingham Forest and nearly destroyed it. For Forest, the fall wasn't sudden. It was a slow fade. In 1999, they crashed out of the Premier League after a club record 19-game winless run and an 8-1 humiliation at home to Manchester United. It marked their third relegation in 7 seasons and the start of a long exile. The slide didn't stop there. By 2005, Forest had fallen all the way into League One, becoming the first former European champions to drop to England's third tier. For a generation, they were a giant in the dark, weighed down by financial struggles, poor ownership, and constant resets that went nowhere. Everything changed in 2022. Under Steve Cooper, Forest roared through the playoffs and beat Huddersfield 1-0 at Wembley. A Levi Colwill own goal, sealing their long-awaited return to the Premier League after 23 years away. And above it all stood Evangelos Marinakis. When he took over in 2017, he promised to bring Nottingham Forest back to where it belongs. And for a while, it looked like he was delivering on that promise. After promotion, Forest detonated the transfer market with 21 new signings and over £150 million spent in a single summer. It was shock therapy, a desperate bid for survival, and a statement that Nottingham Forest were back. Among the arrivals, 3 stood above the rest. Morgan Gibbs-White, the record-breaking signing. He became the creative heartbeat of the team, their leader, their spark in every attack, the face of Forest's rebirth. Chris Wood, the veteran finisher whose experience and cold precision in front of goal turned tight games into victories. His goals didn't just keep Forest alive, they gave them belief. Keylor Navas, a Champions League winner, arriving on loan for a short but defining spell. His presence between the posts brought calm, leadership, and world-class reliability. Each of these players wasn't just a signing, they were statements of intent. Proof that under Marinakis, Nottingham Forest were done surviving. They were ready to compete, and this was only the beginning, because what came next would silence every doubt. Every critic who said Forest's story ended at survival. Behind every great comeback story, there's always someone pulling the strings. And at Nottingham Forest, that man was, and still is, Evangelos Marinakis. From the outside, he looked like the perfect owner, a man who genuinely cared about restoring Forest's legacy. But those who worked with him quickly learned. Marinakis doesn't just own a club, he controls it, and that comes from who he is. Before football, Marinakis built his empire in the shipping industry, commanding fleets, running a media network, and building a fortune through authority and precision. In that world, decisions are made fast, orders aren't questioned, and respect is earned through control. It's the same mentality he brought into football, where he runs his clubs like he runs his businesses. Hands-on, direct, and absolutely in charge. He's been described as passionate and powerful, but also volatile, impatient, unforgiving, the kind of man who celebrates a win like a fan and takes a loss like it's personal. Stuart Pearce once said, "The balance of power in football has shifted towards the owners." And at Forest, that couldn't be more true. Because when Marinakis speaks, everyone listens. We saw that power on full display when Morgan Gibbs White signed his new contract. What should have been a celebration of the player suddenly felt like a reminder of who really ran Nottingham Forest. Pundits called it intimidating, fans called it strange, and yet it was Marinakis in a nutshell, commanding, proud, and unwilling to stay in the shadows. But it wasn't just moments like that which revealed his influence. Even the players and staff began to feel it, decisions made above their heads, pressure mounting from the boardroom, whispers of fear about what would happen if results didn't go his way. Still, you couldn't deny it, his methods worked. Forest had returned, and Marinakis was hailed as the man who made it all possible. The problem? When someone believes they're the reason for success, they often can't accept when things start to go wrong. And for Marinakis, that moment was coming sooner than anyone expected. It started with a decision that broke hearts across Nottingham. Steve Cooper, the man who brought Forest back to the Premier League after 23 years, was sacked. A man loved by players, adored by fans, and respected by everyone who'd lived the club's story. He'd delivered the impossible, he'd rebuilt belief, and yet, for Evangelos Marinakis, that wasn't enough. The official line was, poor results, but everyone knew it went deeper. Tension with the board, clashing visions, an owner who wanted more control. When Cooper left, the City ground fell silent. It wasn't just a manager leaving, it was the soul of the club walking out the door. And this was a sign of things to come. Days later, Marinakis moved fast. Enter Nuno Espirito Santo, a proven name, a steady hand, a coach who brought structure to chaos. Within months, he had done what no one expected. He led Nottingham Forest into Europe for the first time in 3 decades. Tactically disciplined, emotionally calm, and respected by the dressing room, Nuno had given the club something priceless: stability and belief. But behind that calm, the storm was brewing. Marinakis' influence crept deeper. Transfers, tactics, even staff appointments. The owner who once built the dream was now micromanaging it. Reports spoke of tension, of Nuno quietly growing frustrated at constant interference. He wanted to build, Marinakis wanted to control. Then came the inevitable. On September 9th, 2025, barely months after guiding Forest to European football, Nuno Espirito Santo was sacked. No warning, no explanation that made sense. For the players who trusted him and the fans who finally believed again, it felt like betrayal. The man who saved Forest from drifting had been cast aside the moment he succeeded. And if that wasn't enough chaos, Marinakis outdid himself. Ange Postecoglou was appointed soon after. The man who had revolutionized Spurs, admired for his attacking football and calm authority, now tasked with fixing a club in freefall. But 39 days later, he was gone. 8 games, 0 wins. The second manager was dismissed in under 2 months, and the way it ended was unbelievable. During Forest's 3-0 home defeat to Chelsea, Ange's final game in charge, witnesses say Marinakis left his seat in the director's box at half-time. While the match was still being played, he had already begun the process of sacking his manager. By the time the full-time whistle blew, the decision was made. Postecoglou was gone, officially dismissed less than 20 minutes after the final whistle. Marinakis wasn't just making decisions, he was making statements. He had become bigger than the club, and Nottingham Forest was paying the price. The club that once ran on belief now ran on fear, and the man who had promised to bring glory back to Nottingham was slowly burning it all to the ground. And as fans watched another season spiral into madness, one question echoed louder than ever. How can one man love a club so much and still destroy it? So where does that leave Forest now? As of today, Sean Dyche has arrived at the City ground. The man built for survival, famous for grit, discipline, and that old-school, no-nonsense Brexit football, now tasked with steadying a ship that's been battered by chaos. And in many ways, that says everything. Dyche isn't a symbol of ambition, he's a symbol of damage control. He's the firefighter you call when everything else is already burning. Don't get me wrong, Dyche is a fighter, a leader, the kind of manager who can drag a team through the mud and still make them believe. But his appointment tells you where Nottingham Forest stand today. Not aiming for Europe, not chasing dreams, just trying to survive their own instability. From Steve Cooper's fairy tale, to Nuno's European miracle, to Ange's 39-day disaster, this is what remains. A club that once rose through unity, now rebuilt on fear. A vision that started with hope, now reduced to repair work. And it all leads back to one man, Evangelos Marinakis, the owner who built Forest's rise and orchestrated its collapse. His money saved the club, his control nearly destroyed it, because when ambition turns into obsession and power replaces patience, you stop leading a club and start suffocating it. For the fans, it's heartbreak all over again. They deserved a future built on progress, not constant resets. They believed in a dream and ended up living a nightmare. So yes, maybe Sean Dyche will steady the ship. Maybe he'll make Forest hard to beat again, but that's not the point. Because Nottingham Forest were never supposed to be just another survival story. They were supposed to be proof that loyalty, belief, and history still matter in modern football. And until the man at the top learns that, no manager, no tactic, no miracle will ever save them. If you enjoyed this deep dive into Nottingham Forest's story, check out the other documentaries on my channel. We've covered the rise and fall of football's biggest clubs and players. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe for more, and if you'd like to support the channel even further, consider becoming a member. Every bit of support helps keep these stories alive.